Welcome to a special episode of the Unemployable Podcast. I've got my dad here as a special guest. Excited to just talk about a few things as he's kind of moved into retirement. We're going to talk about kind of seasons of life and work and kind of how you adjust to them and accept them. Okay. I think that's a fun topic. I think people will enjoy, but thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
He didn't want to be on the podcast, especially once I told him it's a video, but he'll be all right.
I'll be okay.
So you're here from Oklahoma. You're retired recently. You've been selling insurance for the past
37 years.
However many years.
Yeah.
Kind of, the podcast is Unemployable. Obviously, I run a real estate business, but there's these kind of hybrid businesses where you can kind of have one primary source or leader of your business, but still you're technically self-employed.
Right.
You have your own LLC, like you can kind of do some things the way you want. But how did you find that kind of balance? Like, sure, you just thought about getting a job.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
why this kind of hybrid version where you run your own business, but there's still kind of this rule maker?
Right. I just never wanted to be somebody that had to check in at a certain time or leave at a certain time or be under any restraints other than the ones I created for myself.
Yeah.
That was the liberty of, but at the same time, I was working for a huge insurance company that provided some structure and some leadership in areas that I needed help with.
Yeah, and obviously some like retirement benefits, like now you're
Absolutely.
retired and you make some income from that.
Right.
Now it's not a whole lot, but it's something.
Right.
You still have, that changes things, right? When you know you can actually retire, and I think a lot of people just want that comfort.
I do too.
To know that they can actually stop working someday.
Right.
That's a big deal to people, right?
Right. I know a lot of people my age are continuing to work because they don't have that retirement set up to be able to survive in today's economy.
Yeah. The other day we're at a store and Helena was like, why do old people seem like they work so hard? Maybe they should be retired.
Right.
It's like the kids' perspectives. Like,
yes.
No, they probably have to work to still pay their bills. But how did you have that kind of foresight to know that like you wanted to retire? Did you see men around you retire?
Yes, I saw men that I looked up to close and afar.
Yeah.
That I saw how they prepared for that time in life. And I was around other men who did not prepare and encouraged me to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have seen some people get stuck at a place where they can't work anymore, but they don't have any money either.
Right.
That's a really hard place to be in. It's a lot of pressure you can put on your family.
Right.
Which I'm thankful. I'm not that worried about you putting much pressure on me to provide for you.
No, I won't.
I told you many times, I'll just put you in a home.
Right. I've remembered that too.
Yeah. Not gonna.
Right.
I'm not wiping your butt. Like all those kind of things. Like, I mean, we'll get some care in, but I'm gonna draw some pretty hard lines.
Right.
Melanie can help a lot.
Yes.
But we also have talked since you've been here, like just the season I'm in as a young dad, little kids, running a business, building a business, and building to something that, maybe I can get to a point where I slow down a lot.
Right.
I say slow down a lot because I can't imagine ever stopping doing some kind of work, some kind of business building. Right. But it's a really unique season where it's hard to have hobbies. It's hard to build friendships. A lot of these things that are really challenging when you have little kids that you want to be around a lot.
Right.
And you're building something that is occupying your brain the rest of the time.
Right.
And I've tried to explain it to Christina sometimes. It's like, I don't finish my work day and it's like I finished everything on my list.
Right.
It's like, no, I finished some of the things, but the list grew by 30 things.
Right.
And I delegated some of those, but some of those, like, I'm not ready to delegate yet because I don't quite know what they're going to look like until this other domino falls. And it's just this constant kind of balancing act. But how do you feel like as a young dad, you manage that stress?
Yeah. I wish I could say I did it well, but I a lot of times did not do it well, I think. But sometimes it's even hard to remember
I bet. Yeah.
what I did or didn't do.
Yeah.
It's easier to remember the things I didn't do at this stage than,
Yeah.
than what I was, how I did well at anything.
Sure. And we did eventually get to a season where like you and I had like really common interests. Like we started
Right.
hunting and fishing together a lot.
Right.
But before then, I mean, as a young dad now, I know you finish the day tired.
Right. Just tired.
You
and-
come home from a hard day of work and then you do the things around your property you need to do, and you maybe go to, fellowship dinner at church or whatever it is. You do the things, and it's very consistent, like week after week.
Right.
When you're in that season, something I'm just in the middle of, and I see
Right.
so clearly. It's like, no, I want every day to be the same at this
Right.
point.
Well, I know I didn't play golf much. I didn't fish much. I just wanted to be present with you guys, with my children and my wife. During that time, there wasn't time for anything else, really.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, how I can see myself following in your footsteps in some ways, even with our property here. Mm-hmm. We have just an acre, but very wooded in a section. We have 19 chickens right now. And when I was a kid, when I was 3 until I was about 10, we had 22 acres.
Right.
That was just like magical for me. It was like when I think of my childhood, that's what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
I also, it's interesting. I feel like the woods like raised me in some ways,
Right.
Because I wanted to be out there and like reflecting, and
Sure.
if there was like a sense of safety to me out there,
Right.
even though it probably wasn't that safe. I'm
No.
just a little kid out in the woods,
Probably
like
wasn't very safe.
climbing stuff, jumping off rocks.
Snakes. and-
Oh yeah, all kinds of poisonous snakes. But there was this sense of safety I felt on that property. I just loved it.
Right.
Exploring and just knowing that like I'm at peace out here.
Yes.
Like, and there's different like little places on this property that I feel like, oh, I had a hard day at school. I'm gonna go sit under that one cedar tree over there on that hill, and I just like have this like space for myself. I did that every day though.
That's great to hear, because when we purchased the place, it was in pretty rough shape. But Amy and I were like, we love this place. We feel it, and we think our kids will feel it too, and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
And when you say rough shape, you mean like there was piles of old appliances that
Yes.
people had dumped out there, stuff like that.
Now grass all really tall.
I don't remember the grass. I was 3, obviously, but I remember the years getting it to like a really cool place.
Right.
And then it became the place where, even then I felt like we don't have much money. Like I can't like ask for stuff and I just get it.
Right.
But we somehow had this property that everyone wanted to have their birthday parties at.
Exactly. Right.
And that felt kind of magical
Right.
in its own way. I also have a really sweet memory, like as a family, for like a celebratory evening or something. We would often make hobo dinners.
Right.
We got into the woods, go like on that little trail down by the creek where there was those vines,
Right.
which I loved like jumping on as a kid. Build a little fire down there, wrap up some meat and potatoes and onions and foil, and just cook it on fire
Right.
and make s'mores.
Right.
And like laugh at who burned them, like. But those memories like really stick with me.
Great.
Of like, no, like we have this little ritual in our family of a way we celebrate and a way we.
Right.
It stands out to me like that. Helena's at this age now where she like wants to celebrate things, even if she like almost hit her brother but didn't.
Right.
She's like, "Can we celebrate?" That's why those flowers are on the table. I bought those flowers after
Okay.
that, and we like kind of like you showed restraint. Like let's celebrate that. That's great. No one had to say anything. You did it on your own. Like, but I think finding those little ways to celebrate are like really
I do too.
impactful.
I do too. We
funny
did think of it in a celebratory way.
Yeah,
even
we
then.
did.
Might be roasting some bologna on a stick or something
Yeah.
special that day. Or-
Well, you'd buy that bologna from the gas station that
Right.
Ed Puckett would smoke or whatever. Was it Ed that smoked
Yes.
that? You should tell him. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, big old chunk of bologna. That's pretty funny. I still look back at like the stress of it. And I feel this at times, like, why not just go get a job?
Right.
Like being your own boss is overrated. At this point, I just feel like I can't fit I can't go as slow as they do at other places. I can't like not ask questions that they don't really want me to ask, like
Right.
all those kind of things. But I'm just curious in those stretches, say the oil and gas industry is booming in small town Oklahoma, like why not just go get a job as an inspector or something?
Yeah. I really didn't. I never really enjoyed that much being a part of a workforce, having to get
Yeah,
along
yeah.
with all the different personalities at work because they wouldn't think like I did, and I typically wanted to be the leader and the boss,
Yeah,
and that didn't always work out for me.
sure.
So I don't think I could have made it work, and I've thought about it before, but just that clocking in and clocking out, being confined to a building all day,
Yeah.
that did not.
Yeah.
I like being able to come and go too much.
Sure. I definitely feel it like with my wife now that she kind of wishes I could turn it off more.
Sure.
And maybe if I just had a job, I could. And maybe I could. But there's always just an itch in me.
I just think a lot of people that have jobs with maybe our type of personality, you have a side gig when you get off of work. So you end up working more on that.
Well, the side gigs for me end up being building a chicken coop. She's like, why are you building such a fancy chicken coop? I'm like, I kind of want to.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is.
Right.
Why are you washing your truck again? I just
Right.
want to. She's often trying to get me to just like, can you just like rest for a day? Just be with the family? I'm like, this is not really how I'm wired. It's just like, if I start doing that, it feels like I drink too much caffeine. And it's like there's this thing like buzzing in my brain and in my
Right.
body. Like I gotta go do something. That's
Yes.
what it feels like to me.
And I think probably by the time you hit your 40s, you'll probably start being able to adjust that time better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, even like my coach, he just turned 40 recently. He's often encouraging me to like, well, just slow down a little bit. Like, you reach a point of that kind of busyness too, where you're not that productive,
Right.
and so he's like, no, like, why not just rest for the day, turn it off, just watch a few movies, like,
Well, and by then your kids are an age that they're playing soccer or want to fish or whatever they're into. You'll be ready to do what they're interested in.
yeah.
It might be all things here at your home, but you'll be.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he never got a job.
You are.
Yeah, some of it gave me like permission to go get a license to do something and then just like figure it out. I thought, well, if my dad figured it out, I could figure something out.
Yeah. I like the idea. I always like the idea of my earning potential being unlimited also.
Yeah.
And working on commission, realizing I can make as much as I want to.
Right. Yeah, I have a buddy that also sells real estate, and he's always just doesn't understand it when people don't get like, I work in sales, I can just go sell another thing and make more money. Like,
Right.
my salary's not my salary. I just like, if I need more money, I need to go sell something. And like,
Right.
eventually in real estate, like the goal is to get out of that, of like thinking about it in terms of like sales.
Oh, right.
Like, oh, if I can afford that truck, if I can just do this many more deals, like you want to get out of that kind of hamster wheel of it eventually. But whenever you do work in sales, like there is that potential.
Right.
Like, no, I just need to go sell a few more things.
But it's always inspiring to do things more efficiently or change the way I'm
Sure.
doing it or the way I'm speaking or just continuing to grow. Felt like it was a continual growth for me as a person
Yeah.
rather than being trapped in a job.
Let's go back to you being 17, working in the bank,
Okay.
leaning a little bit more too.
Okay.
And your boss says, hey, we're going to send you to this class, this Dale Carnegie thing.
Right.
You got to talk a lot. You're going to be super embarrassed, but you got to go do it.
Right.
What was your impression of that?
Well, I'd been put in similar positions through other things I'd done in school at that point, but it was I was nervous, obviously.
But you had done some stuff like through FFA or things like that, right?
Public speaking and
Yeah, yeah.
demonstrations or
Sure.
showing cattle or pigs or something. But yeah, a room full of adults and there was just two teenagers in there. It was pretty intimidating, but everybody was pretty encouraging too.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was something the boss was saying I had to do.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. So Dale Carnegie wrote this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then these kind of small group, like Toastmaster kind of things started as a result of that.
Right.
And it was really just this movement where America was becoming more sales forward. And you were like really in the middle of it.
Right.
You were. And just how do we train young men to be able to sell something?
Right.
No longer is like the goal to work in a factory. Now the goal is to sell something.
Absolutely.
And this transition happened. Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, like all those kind of people, like during that era,
Right.
started teaching like, okay, like people can all earn more money. Our whole economy can rise
Right.
if we can teach the young men how to sell. And often selling is communicating.
Yes. That word that comes to my mind is just refining our communication skills.
Right.
That's what it all hinges on, being able to sell people on us or an idea or whatever.
I think we miss that point so often in life, like how much is communication.
Sure.
I see this with my wife. Like obviously she's a really good communicator and very passionate about communication as well. But I even see this lately with my coach, my business coach, as comes from this like leadership pedigree in the Marines, where like some of these things are just intuitive to him at this point.
Right.
And I'm like, no, to teach me like how to communicate, how to identify these things in the people I'm leading. And like I realize so much of leadership is communication, identifying exactly how a person needs to be communicated to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And they've expressed they want to get from point A to point B. So now it's on me as their leader to help them get from point A to point B.
Right.
And not just like give them the tools, but like be their coach, be there with them. Hey, this is how we're going to do it. This is the deadlines we're going to use. This is the approach we're going to use. Like, you're okay with that system? Now let's go do it.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing that I always enjoyed was being observant of remembering who I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
And I need to change up my cadence or my vocabulary or whatever it might be to communicate well to that person.
Right.
And then the next person 30 minutes later is totally different, but that's fun and challenging to change it up and being able to actually see their eyes communicate that they're understanding what you're talking about.
Yeah. Something Will said to me months ago that stuck with me is like, you have to communicate at the speed of comprehension.
Yes, that's exactly.
Somebody's
right.
coming in to buy insurance. Some people want to know the details of all the little parts of it.
Right.
And you can get into it. That kind of person might have their VIN number memorized. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then the next person is like, I just know I have to have this. Tell me what I should get.
Right.
Like you work with those people very differently.
Right. Exactly.
And that challenge is pretty fun.
And some say, well, what do you do? What would you do if you were me?
Yeah.
You know,
That's what my clients say too.
They're like, I'm trusting you totally to just tell me.
Yeah.
I don't need to know anything else.
Exactly. People want to be led, especially insurance is so interesting. And we often talk about like the racket that it is. Like,
Right.
yeah, the government makes people come in and buy insurance from you. Okay, great. Good for you.
Yeah.
real hard thing
Hard
to sell,
sell,
right? And then rates go up everywhere. And so your pay goes up. It's like, it's kind of funny.
Right.
But it's like the mafia is, very much insurance.
Sure.
Even in the movies about mafia.
Right.
But now it's just government mandated mafia.
Right.
But it's just interesting with a big transaction like real estate. People are often like, what should I do?
I bet. Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah.
If we deflect and we're like, it's really up to you. We need you to make the decision. They're like, but what would you do?
Right.
Now we're at a point where we don't want them to ask, what would we do? They already know our stance on it and how we think we should proceed because we've dug deep enough to understand their goals and what it's going to take to reach their goals.
Right.
And we've connected with like what's important to them. And once you're able to do that, I think that transition to advising is a lot easier.
I do too. Yeah. In property I've purchased, I've even dealt with realtors that I wouldn't think to ask what would they do.
Yeah.
But other realtors, I have wanted to ask that, depending on how well they connected with me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
For sure.
I was letting them try to connect with me.
Right. And since most of our clients are watching me on YouTube and then seeing, like, deciding this person is connective enough to me. I like this person. I know them. I trust them. I'm going to call Sam and say, hey, Sam, can you help us buy a house? Since that's the relationship, a lot of those barriers are just crossed.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
When they're asking, they've watched enough of our videos to know how many kids I have, how my house that flooded, where I grew up.
Right.
Some people have even picked up on the fact that I was a gymnast as a kid. And I've said that like just a handful of times across 300 videos. But they pick up on the details whenever they're like getting to know a person. And whenever it's such a big transaction, you got to give a bit more of yourself in it to get people to actually trust you.
Absolutely. Yes.
When you just seem transactional. And even the people that are in our database that we're still emailing, I'm always like refining emails to say like, let's not make, that sounds like open this so we can brag. Like, let's make it sound more like you might love this story.
Okay.
So I'm always just refining.
Yes.
Because I want people to open it and get value. Then if we build up that value meter, they're going to call.
Right. That was always my thing. Being in insurance is building that value so that they would continue to buy from me year after year after year.
Yeah.
I don't have to obtain new customers. I just work on keeping the same ones, as many as possible. That's the key to any business, I would think.
Yeah, retaining. And even in real estate, like the goal is these people refer you business,
right?
And they do repeat business. Like
exactly.
Your costs to do a repeat client is nothing. You have no marketing costs with that.
Right.
Yeah, we have multiple clients now that we helped buy years ago. Now they want to sell and buy another place.
Right
around the corner. Right. Yeah, we're here for you. Good thing we spent $100 a year to send you those quarterly gifts, and you get our newsletter every week and all those kind of things.
Well, I think it's important to understand that they trust you, but to not be arrogant about that in any fashion, to be humble, to realize that these people are trusting me and I have a big responsibility.
Yeah, you have to take it very seriously, and they can tell if you're not.
Yes, they can. Because there's plenty of people who are in sales who lack a humbleness.
Absolutely.
To them.
Yeah. It all comes down to what kind of questions do you ask to me? Like,
true.
My side of the conversation can mostly be questions.
Very true. Yes.
And anytime I'm hopping on a Zoom call with a brand new client, I'm mostly asking questions. I'm 80% questions.
Instead of telling them everything you know.
Yeah.
Talking about yourself, they don't need to hear all that.
They know enough about me already.
Right.
If they have a question, I'm going to answer it.
Right.
But there's probably going to be a question even after my answer.
Right. People love to be asked questions.
Especially about themselves.
Right.
Yeah. That's a big deal, actually, from Dale Carnegie.
Yes.
Like actually saying someone's name and getting someone to talk about themselves as well. People love to talk about themselves.
Sure. So true. Yeah.
I actually used ChatGPT, like an AI thing, to summarize that book recently, and then brought up those points in a YouTube teaching about how to make yourself look more natural on camera, feel more natural on camera.
Right.
Like these are all things you can do that will help you feel more natural.
Okay.
And a lot of people just struggle to feel comfortable in that kind of setting.
Sure.
Being on video is challenging in general. But I came across this idea. I heard my guys, Will and Eli, on a podcast talking about their YouTube channel. I was like, I think this is the thing. I probably talked to you that week. I may have talked to you that day. And it's one of those things, like I remember where I was in my car when it like clicked for me. I was like leaving this CrossFit class, listening to this podcast. And I was like, this is it. This is what I need to do. And I had my license for 4 months at the time. I was like, this is going to be hard, but I think this is the way to do it. Then I listened to it again, the whole podcast again. And I reached out to those guys. They were encouraging. Then I'm sure I talked to you within a couple of days, and you were encouraging about that from the very beginning. You probably didn't even really understand it, but it was something you kept reminding me, like as I was still getting business from other sources, but I was building this thing. He's like, you kept saying, I think it's the videos. I think you just need to keep making the videos. I think that's going to be it. What do you think was going on in you to say that?
I just think that I knew you had skills that you could handle it and get good at it, get better, continue to get better. But then realizing from what I've seen in the business world that the video thing seemed to be catching on and be a really popular thing to attract people.
Sure.
The way people received communication
Yeah.
versus when I started, it might have been face-to-face going to the coffee shop and shaking hands.
Yeah, or joining the Rotary Club
Joining
or
the
those
Rotary
kind of
or
things.
Lions
Yeah,
Club.
yeah.
Yeah. But I just saw that being a real avenue going forward in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, but something about it like clicked with you, and you stayed very encouraging even when it wasn't working yet.
Right.
And that always just like stood out to me. Like there were a few people that like really thought it would work, and you were at top of the list.
Right.
Now I thought it would work, but even when I look back at like journals and stuff, I'm like it was scary.
Right.
Like
Sure.
all my eggs are shifting over here to this basket, and I don't know how to do it yet, and it's really like challenging and exposing every time I even shoot a video.
Right.
I'm even seeing like even the things I'm saying, like, are they even valuable? I haven't sold that many houses. I haven't lived here very long. Like all those kind of things.
Right. And I saw it as, because I'd been in the insurance business, as just a numbers thing, that if 10% of people are attracted, then that's 10%. And that could be 100 people.
Yeah.
Or 1,000.
Yeah.
And it's just a percentage thing. It's going to appeal to some and not appeal to others.
Right. And eventually it just became, okay, the people that call me have chosen me, and it just feels different.
Sure.
It's not like they're like saw the sign and says it's and read insurance and came in. They
That's
saw the sign and read Vic Caudle and then came in.
That's right.
And that's the difference.
Yes.
Like, you know, the people that come in and they're like, oh, my neighbor told me to come see you.
Right.
Or
That's right.
that kind of recognition
Yes.
compared to just real estate.
Yes. It's different, and it is. And, yeah, I was just excited about it for you because I knew you would go all in and you'd be successful. I just believed it.
Yeah. So even like reflecting back a little bit, the first deal I closed from YouTube was the third deal I closed ever.
Okay.
That was in 2021. We just closed our 132nd deal from YouTube.
Wow.
So, and I know people that have done more than that,
Sure.
but I just want to like celebrate that a little bit. Like 132 deals from one lead source, being brand new to YouTube, brand new to Florida, brand new to real estate.
Right.
I want that to give people permission
Right.
to just understand, like, no, I literally heard about this idea on a podcast and then started figuring it out.
Right. And I celebrate with you.
Thanks.
You bet. I do every day, knowing what you're doing. But I've also used it to been able to encourage some other young people in my area
For sure.
through you, of believing in themselves, having confidence to go for something if you think you want to try it. To do
Yeah.
it.
I think that's a big thing. Like, there are often people around us that are trying to give us permission to do something like that.
Right.
It's hard to give it to yourself.
Yes, it is.
It really is. It's scary. Sometimes it's in opposition to some of those people around us too.
Right.
You're telling them like, no, I think you're wrong about me. I think this about myself. It's pretty challenging.
Yeah. And just having confidence. I think a lot of people just lack confidence in themselves.
Why do you think that is?
You know, I don't know. I really don't. I think they haven't been presented enough challenges maybe in their life to
Sure.
try things and fail and fail and fail over and over, but then be successful in maybe overcoming that thing you failed at, or just having success in other areas, or
Yeah.
just being exposed to
Yeah.
opportunities.
I actually think gymnastics as a kid gave me a lot of confidence.
I do too.
Now, whenever I started doing more traditional sports, it didn't translate there.
Right.
But it translates here right now. Because in gymnastics, as a kid, so I was super competitive from age 6 to 11 or something, right? I'm practicing literally as much as I'm allowed to, 4 to 5 hours a day, 5 days a week during the season. And in those early ages, they tell you the routine. So you have to get really good at the one routine, and everybody's doing the same routine across the whole state.
Right.
Evens the playing field. There's no like elective moves you can put in there. Like, no, you have to do it as it's written. You're just working to dial in these very specific parts of it.
Right.
And often there's like a part in it that I'm really struggling with, and I'm like digging in deep. I'm working on that part multiple times a week.
Right.
And the whole routine takes a few minutes, but there's one part I keep getting stuck on.
Yes.
And you just have to get better at that one little part.
Right.
You have to maintain the other parts and then invest in this part to try to get it at the same level.
Right.
And I think that progress and that kind of dissecting of the two different kind of speeds has helped me to not just grow something, but maintain it and grow something at the same time.
Yes.
Which are two very, very different parts of my brain.
Right. Yeah, and I see you applying that to your own children now.
Yeah.
You know, and that giving them opportunities to try things and not hovering over them in a way that would inhibit them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I think one of the most important things to teach them too is how to sell stuff.
Yes, I do too.
Like it is
Going
what
forward.
drives our economy.
Yes.
Is a person's ability to solve someone else's problem.
Right.
And that's what sales is. It's identifying the problem, understanding what this person's looking for, and then solving it
Yes.
with a solution that you have. Now, you don't always have the solution, but if you can start to identify the problem and then offer some kind of solution to that, I think that really starts to translate into closed sales. But then what sparked that thing was Helena wanted to buy stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, no, we're not going to buy.
No.
We can't buy more Legos. We spent $100 this week on Legos.
Right. We're not
And
doing
you
that.
assembled all of them. We're not going to go buy more yet. She's like, I wish I had my own money. I was like, let's find some ways for you to get your own money.
And I can remember you saying that just clear as day.
Yeah.
You always wanted your own money.
Yeah.
Do what you wanted with it. And I understood that.
Yeah, that was the feeling. I want to be able to spend it and nobody asked me why, what, how much.
Right.
Like, no, this is my thing.
Right.
My decision, and now my purchase.
Right.
And my feeling of like, it cost this much. Like sometimes that feels like a lot. Like,
Right.
I like that whole
Right.
thing for a kid.
Like some people grow up raising animals in my part of the country,
Yeah.
and the children do the chores every day and raise the animal. Then they sell the animal, and it's their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's another way to gain confidence is through raising livestock.
Oh yeah. Taking care of something
Taking
else
care of
is
something
a big
else.
part of it. Yeah.
Right.
But I look back at gymnastics often and reflect on that often. Like I learned a lot through that,
You did. Sure did.
and had coaches that were really willing to invest in me,
Right.
and were very safe for me,
Right.
like physically. Like you, as a young gymnast, you fall a lot and you get caught by your coach.
Right.
It's just-
And I think a lot of the sports, when I see people like yourself that have used that as a motivator and provided success to them, it's due to some good coaching, because some sports, if the coaching is poor, the kid really doesn't gain a whole lot from it.
yeah.
But being around
Right.
good high quality coaches is very powerful for young men and young women too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've seen me invest in that kind of stuff a lot over the
Right.
past few years. I remember when I first agreed to like hire this coach, Will, and I had to pay him like $7,000 right away
Right.
for a few months. I remember you being encouraging about that overall, but what was your thought about that?
I was like, part of me is like, that's crazy. I can't believe you would pay somebody $7,000 as an adult to coach you.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at it's all relative to how much you can make, how much better you can be. It may seem like a really small amount when it's all said and done. So yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, he just started doing it, and I think it was $15,000 for the year, but I did like 6-month chunks. So $7,500. For me, that's one deal.
Right.
So if I had one transaction, it pays for this. what else can I get out of this that will elevate me as a person and then elevate my business? But one of the things I think I've ended up pulling from it more is for myself.
Right.
Like, not just how do I make more money,
No.
but how do I become the person that can handle the pressures of the next level,
The money comes.
that can navigate the opportunities that come forward, that all those kind of things, that can lead the team that ends up following me.
Right. Often our minds are so small in that regard. That
Yeah, they are.
The coaching can really help expand, I think, to see a bigger picture.
Yeah. So much of it is like philosophical between he and I at this
Right.
point. I come with a question, we work through it, and then I'm like, how would you do this and this? Like, I notice a lot of pressure on me now to lead in around these areas. Like, tell me about some like situations you've done that. And some of this stuff, he was in the Marines for 7-8 years and then was Denver police for 5 years. Like, he's done a lot of this stuff and like been around people that do it from a very specific perspective. And also done it in life and death situations, which kind of changes things.
Yes, it does.
The pressure cooker of that really like makes you get to a certain level. But so many of the things I get out of him now at this point, he's like, I didn't even think about this stuff. I just do this and that instinctively. I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I was able to pull it out because it's actually so valuable. I go back to him and say like, you should like talk about that kind of stuff more because people don't think of that stuff.
Well, I think it's important. Don't want to discount as we grow through life to have somebody like a coach like that believes in you,
Yeah.
that truly believes in you and wants the best for you, because we can get kind of isolated and lonely in adulthood, especially as an entrepreneur. Just somebody speaking into your life
Yeah.
with positive things. And might not be positive, but ways to help you grow.
Right.
Yeah. But they believe in you. You know that they believe in you.
100%. And I often feel like some of those people believe in me more than I believe in myself.
Yes. Right.
And that's the differential that you need, I think, knowing that that person like really believes in you,
Yes.
even when you doubt yourself.
Right. Because
Yeah, that's
being an
really
entrepreneur can be lonely at times.
Oh, it's very lonely. Yeah.
So it's very valuable, I think. In hindsight, looking at the coaching you have received, I can see that it's been really valuable to you.
Yeah, it's been a lot more since then, too.
Right.
Yeah, I'll keep spending it. Some of it's, I think of it how LeBron invests in his body.
Right. Same way.
I got to invest in my own growth
Right.
as a leader, as a business owner, as a dad, as a husband.
Right.
That's just me investing in my growth.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because they all need to grow, not just your entrepreneur side, but your as a husband, father, a son.
Yeah,
brother,
I think
all
sometimes the entrepreneur side can't grow unless those others do.
Good point. Yes.
Or you end up kind of sacrificing
Yes.
some of these to grow this one. I don't really want to do that.
No.
So it's not. It makes me think of the topic of balance because I think people like to talk about work-life balance, especially people that have a job. When you own your own business, you realize like, no, this is always going to kind of be on my mind, and
Right.
that's okay. I kind of have to accept that. But I think it's just choosing what you're going to be imbalanced in for the season.
Yes.
Kind of as we close, just kind of going back to seasons of life. Like right now, the imbalance I have is I don't watch movies. I don't really have hobbies. We don't really eat out. We don't go to concerts. Like we don't really go on vacations. And we're okay with that.
Right.
That's the imbalance that we're okay with in this season
Yes.
so that we can have a very consistent home life with our kids, so that we can build this business to a place to where, hey, if we do want to go be in Europe for a few months,
Right.
when Helena's, 10, 11, 12, we can. But that takes imbalance right now to
Right.
be able to have
Have that,
that different imbalance later.
later. Right.
So you have to kind of pick when you want certain imbalances.
It's true. And
What-
just be aware and be
Yeah.
in tune with that.
Sometimes it's just happening.
Going through the motions.
And then like you realize like, oh, I'm off balance, but like, no, maybe this is the imbalance needed for this season
yeah.
to get to this next thing.
Yes, I so agree. I'm proud of you. You're doing great.
Thanks. I was excited to have you on here there's people that I talk to you about, even like Will.
Right.
Will's like, hey, make sure you send me the episode once it's done.
Okay.
Like we have a very close relationship.
Right.
We talk, every day, every other day,
Right.
casually, just kind of about nothing.
Right.
But when there is something, it's there too.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly like, yeah, I'm just driving to this thing, just saying hi.
Just saying hi. Visiting. What's going on today?
Some of it, Christina teases me. It's like my own thoughts are too loud and critical that I can't just like drive and not talk to somebody. Maybe that's the case.
Maybe that's the case.
She's like, maybe you just need some quiet for a while. I'm like, nope, don't want it. But she's probably right.
Could be.
But no, I'm excited for people to get this. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Sam.